Well, hey there, welcome back. This week's meditation is the shortest yet discussed, and in fact, maybe the shortest of all Marcus's writings. Before I dive into it, I'd like to thank all of you for putting Practical Stoicism in the top 100, almost the top 50 of philosophy podcasts on Apple Podcasts. This program is currently ranked at number 61 in the U.S. of the philosophy category on Apple Podcasts, and I'll happily admit how good that feels. I'm glad that what we are doing here together is having such a broad appeal and is being received so well. I appreciate all the positive reviews and emails. They help me to feel like what we are doing here together matters and is needed, so thank you. And now let's move on to this week's meditation. Yes, keep degrading yourself, soul, but soon your chance at dignity will be gone. Everyone gets one life. Yours is almost used up. And instead of treating yourself with respect, you have entrusted your own happiness to the souls of others. Every single one of us is likely to feel this one pretty deeply, I think. Marcus is essentially saying, we're running out of time to become the things we wish to become, and instead of prioritizing ourselves and our desire to become that thing, we are instead worried about what others think, or how others perceive the thing which we are striving after. In Marcus's case, he is beginning what will be a constant thread of conversation throughout the meditations. Behaving like a Stoic looks very strange to most of the rest of the world, and that is because most of the rest of the world is not interested in living like a Stoic. Consider what we've discussed thus far in the meditations that we've covered. Stoics are ever aware of their mortality. That makes them seem kind of morbid. They're ever efforting to rein in their emotional response to things so that they can be more useful in the moment. That makes them seem kind of detached, and they're actively trying to take life seriously so that they can be useful during it and feel truly fulfilled by it. And that can make us seem kind of boring. Now, how many people do you know who behave in that way, or who appreciate people who appear to be behaving in that way? This is not a question rooted in elitism, rather in recognition of the fact that most people are concerned with what others think of them, with their status in life, with their possessions, with their own problems. Most people do not look at their life as a role to be played out or a career to show up for. But maybe there is an analog between Stoicism and, for example, weightlifting or strength training. A lot of people would look at those individuals who go to the gym every day, who eat a high-protein diet, they're eating like breasts of chicken at a time, and they might look at that and say, that does not look fun, those people are crazy, I'm going to go eat this, or I'm going to spend my time doing this. Never mind why those people might feel that way towards that person who's doing that specific kind of work. Think about how the person who's doing that specific kind of work, eating that diet, keeping that workout regimen, imagine what they are trying to achieve and how important it is to them because, quite frankly, going to the gym every day, eating chicken breasts and spinach for breakfast, those are probably not things that are fun. They are probably things that are kind of difficult for those people. But they get into the habit of it, like people can get into the habit of being more Stoic and practicing the Stoic philosophy, and they recognize it as something that they must do to feel fulfilled, and that becomes the thing which is important. If those people stopped listening to their own drive and stopped paying attention to the thing that was important to them, they might lose their motivation because of the way that others felt about them or treated them or talked about them. Sure, by quitting, they might gain more respect from the everyman or everywoman who doesn't do those things. But what would they lose themselves? And 10 years or 20 or 30 years down the road, when those people whom they gave up that effort for to be more liked by or better perceived by are no longer around, how will they feel? Will they still have time to get back into the practice and achieve those things they gave up on for the sake of others all those years ago? And when we, as Stoics, decide to act in the way that Stoics act, how strange must we seem to most people? And perhaps this is why more people do not choose the Stoic path, or maybe perhaps do not choose a specific path which requires a great amount of discipline anyway. Because our path and those other paths are paths which get strange looks. And who wants to be looked at strangely? It doesn't feel good. Who wants to feel like they perhaps do not fit in? So isn't it common that we forego the things we feel we should be doing in order that we might not feel like outsiders. In a previous meditation, I used the example of eating healthy. Part of why we do not eat as healthy as perhaps we should has something to do with ease, right? But how much of it has to do with not wanting to upset the apple cart? Perhaps we would like to become a vegetarian or a vegan. We feel as though health-wise that would be good for us. But we don't stand up and say so because we don't want others to feel that they must work around us. We don't want others to think we're silly. Have you ever gone to Thanksgiving dinner with the intention of not overeating, but then, because so many people brought so many dishes and each of them were excited to feel that their dishes were appreciated and that everyone enjoyed them, they're looking for validation for their efforts, you wound up eating too much anyway? And who wants to skip dessert? Not me, usually. But especially who would want to skip dessert if they knew doing so might make the person who brought dessert feel unappreciated. We as human beings tend to make ourselves responsible for the feelings of others so frequently and to such a degree that we very rarely prioritize our own desires and needs, and when we finally do, well, it seems like we're breaking some sort of social contract. And Marcus is telling us here very plainly that we are procrastinating our own happiness and fulfillment because we take responsibility for the happiness and opinions of others. If we spend our lives doing that, we die having never enriched ourselves for our own sake and for our community's sake. If you want to become a vegetarian, if you want to get healthier, if you want to start training to become the next greatest competitor at the Scottish Highland Games, then you should stop caring what others think about the changes you'll need to make in your life in order to accomplish those things, and start focusing on what you will do to your own soul, as Marcus phrases it, if you keep putting those things which are important to you off until you're too old to do them or until you die. This doesn't mean that you should prioritize being selfish or self-serving. We know that Marcus doesn't feel that way. He feels that human beings are meant to work together. Remember, like the rows of teeth, upper and lower? It only means that you should recognize that there are things which, if left undone, will find you on your deathbed with serious regrets. To operate at your best, you must become the best version of yourself. And you cannot allow how others feel about you or how others perceive you prevent you from doing that important work. And that is all I've got for you for this episode of Practical Stoicism. I want to thank you for taking the time to spend some time with me this weekend talking about Stoicism and going through these meditations. If you've not yet left a review for this podcast, I would appreciate you doing so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or Podchaser.com. Again, thank you for listening, and until next time, take care.